Once again, a very warm welcome to this conference on the artificial voice. My name is Julia Kursell. I am chair of musicology here at the UFA, and I have the pleasure to introduce you to this conference. It is dedicated to the memory of Remco Schaar. I will tell you who that was. Remco Schaar was professor of computational linguistics at this university, and he was an artist. And it was his dream to have this conference on the artificial voice happening. And so we are happy that this is the moment when this dream comes true. And we also wish to express with this conference our gratitude to him, think of him, and have a moment of inspired feelings. I think that is one of the best things one can do, to think of someone, focus on a topic that this person loved for 3 days, and have a very intense exchange about this. So this, for the beginning, the little sad element, which also will make us hopefully happy in thinking about him. And how did this come true? This is due to Hannah Bosma, my colleague Dr. Hannah Bosma, who took the project into her hands and carried it unto this moment, so that I am standing here is her merit, to say so much. She will also introduce you in a minute into the elementary business of the artificial voice. There's much to know, as we all know, or as we will hear. But let me tell you a bit about the difficulties that we had to surmount, or that Hannah surmounted. You will have seen from the program that this conference brings together something that also Remco united in his own person as being an artist and a scholar. So we bring together not only these two worlds, but also I took this down to not forget anything of that multiplicity. Practitioners and scientists, historical and empirical researchers. We bring together musical sculpture, digital and mechanic technology. And I think the contradictions couldn't be greater. So to make such a kind of impossible thing possible, we had lots of help. And I would like to use this moment to also say thank you to some people and institutions. There is the University of Amsterdam and the chair of computational linguistics, first of all. Then musicology contributed. The Amsterdam School of Cultural Analysis. I love ASCA, but sometimes you have these slipping moments in those introductions. So let me express my gratitude to them, and also a few people from these institutions who helped us very much. And these are most of all Jantine van Gogh and Elu Kingma, whom you have met outside, but also Henriette Bitter from the musicology department. Then we would like to thank the Royal Academy, the Royal Netherlands Academy of the Arts and Sciences, the KNAV, who supported us financially. We would like to thank the Orgel Park, where we would go this afternoon, and where we will find the beautiful surroundings there and meet more, these nice surroundings. So thanks also to them for their support, also financially. We would like to thank to STIME, where the third day of this conference, or rather the associated workshop will be organized. And last but not least, unexpectedly, we got help from the Berlinische Galerie in helping us with an additional instrument that you will see this afternoon. So on these words of thanks, I conclude, and I hand the word over to Hannah Bosma.
Welcome. This symposium has a long history. After the defense of my doctoral dissertation on voice and gender and electroacoustic music in December 2013, Remco Schaar proposed to organize together a workshop on voice synthesis. Remco was not only professor in computational linguistics at the University of Amsterdam, but he was also an artist, specialized in algorithmic, process-based artificial art. He had worked with artificial voices before. He had used the MyTalk or MIT Talk and DEC Talk voices, high quality voice synthesis from the early 1980s, based on the work of Dennis Klett at MIT. Remco used the voices perfect Paul, huge Harry, and whispering Wendy to give the computer a voice. Thus, the computer was not only generating art, but also lecturing on art, destabilizing the notion of authorship. And of course, there was also humor involved in using these stereotypical voices. Oh.
Art is not a means of communication. It is meaningless raw material used in open-ended processes of aesthetic reflection by a culturally diverse audience whose interpretations are totally arbitrary. There are no serious reasons for making one particular artwork rather than another. An artistic project that wants to acknowledge this state of affairs faces an interesting technical challenge. To avoid choices, to transcend styles, to show everything.
I have to apologize. There's noise in the system here, so for each sound example I have to do this. Sorry. Remco was planning a new project on voice synthesis, thinking about developing at this time a hybrid system consisting of mechanical voice synthesis controlled by software. Alongside this project, his idea was to organize a workshop or expert meeting on voice synthesis with a selection of the most interesting experts in the interdisciplinary field of voice synthesis. Unfortunately, it turned out that Remco was very ill and sadly he passed away on November 9th in 2015. We were already quite far in the planning of the content of the workshop that had grown into a symposium or conference. For example, Remco had contacted many of the speakers himself. And Remco asked me if I would like to continue with the organization, and of course I said yes. He liked the idea that the conference would go on even if he could not be there. And he also thought that it was a good idea that others at this time would go on with developing an artistic voice synthesis project. And we will talk about that Friday. So thank you, Remco. Thank you very much for the initiative, the ideas, and for making this conference possible. And I think the best way to honor Remco Schaar here is to enjoy and to get inspired by this conference. I'm also very grateful to Julia Kursell, who agreed to join me in organizing the conference. I am aware that this conference was an extra addition to her already heavy workload. So Julia, thank you for being so helpful, positive and inspiring, and for adding some very interesting new ideas and for making this conference possible. Also, I would like to thank, like Julia, some angels in the background who were great practical help. Elu Kingma, Jantine van Gogh, Henriette Bitter and Hendrik de Winkel. So, Remco and I started to talk about the workshop. We were interested in an overview of the history and state of the art of voice synthesis, in new approaches, and in a critical reflection. Above all, I think we were interested in strange, subversive sounds. I won't let you hear them, but if you're interested, look at Google to the circuit bending of furries. It's fun. Here are some of our observations. Voice synthesis is mainly the synthesis of conventional speech. The attempts to synthesize other vocal utterances are mainly focused on conventional singing styles, such as operatic singing. And here I have a very nice example of Ingo Tietze. He's one of the main voice scientists, and he made already in the 90s an operatic voice, the Pavarotti, modeled after Pavarotti, but it's all synthetic, and he also sings himself. Oh, sorry. This is maybe.
is the Centre's director, Professor Ingo Tietze, one of the world's great authorities on the voice, and a pretty good tenor himself. In 1993, Professor Tietze built a computer robot that simulated the voice of the opera tenor Pavarotti, and called it, well, Pavarotti. Pavarotti is a remarkable example of voice synthesis that's modelled on real data collected from a larynx. And although it's a step in the right direction, it still sounds a bit artificial and lacking any emotion.
But we were interested in the synthesis of other voice sounds, such as the so-called extended vocal techniques. Extended vocal techniques were developed in Western avant-garde music around the 1970s, but it was influenced by the sonic explorations in avant-garde music, but also by developments in Dada, sound poetry, jazz music, and theater. An early predecessor was Roy Hart's teacher, Alfred Wolfsohn, a singing teacher and therapist. And I have here a small example of Roy Hart. Amazing, I think. Oh, oops. Another important predecessor was Kathy Berberian.
Yeah. Blow, blow.
Important vocalists performing extended vocal techniques are, for example, Joan LaBarbera, Diamanda Gallas, en Greetje Bijma. And this is Diamanda Gallas. performer of extended vocal techniques is Trevor Wishart. His work on the voice is profoundly influenced by concepts of electronic music theory, such as filtering and modulation. And I'm very happy that he will join us tomorrow. But there are many other artistic uses of the voice that deviate from conventional Western singing. For example, Remco found the voice of Donald Duck an important example.
Dear Donald, I can't understand a word you say. That's the last one. Yes, Mr. Duck? Send my voice in here. Your voice? Oh, Clarence Nash. Yes, I'll send him right in.
Hi, Donald. Boy, what a beautiful day for the little creatures.
What's good about it?
Why, the birds are singing. And hey, I've got something to show you. Just picked it up this morning. Listen to it. Do it. Can't understand me? Oh, can't understand you. Must be that flat beak of yours. Can't mouth the words right.
Why, you pigs and bread, you just don't articulate.
Oh, yeah? Well, listen to this.
Well, you can't sure. Can't understand it myself.
Oh, is that so?
Oh, no. You can't sing either.
But, Donald, you've never complained before.
What? Well, what about this?
So this man is actually, he invented the voice of Donald Duck and he performed it, and there are now many others in other countries who do Donald Duck's voice, and there's also many imitators on the internet and how-tos and so on. It's a very special technique. Another interesting development is the human beatbox, and Al Jarreau and Bobby McFerrin are called the fathers of human beatbox, and it is developed by rappers a lot. And so it's related to jazz music, but also to rap music. And like rap, human beatboxing is not only practiced on stage. And I have a very nice example.
Me and my daughter Nicole, I guess this will be battle part 2, because most of you folks say that she won, but that's good, that's good. Here we go.
What in a cottage cheese? Okay.
These were some examples. Now you know about what kind of voice sounds we are talking these days. And we will hear more about extended vocal techniques this afternoon by Jaap Blonk, and tomorrow morning by Ute Wasserman and Michael Edgerton. So now to the theory. Another observation was that the success of digital voice synthesis that is purely based on synthetic modeling of the voice is limited. It always sounds unnatural, weird. And the contemporary successful voice synthesis that is nowadays abundantly used in voice response systems, in navigation systems, etc. And that is based on recorded real voices, sliced into very small fragments and recombined. And this is called concatenative synthesis. And there's also successful singing synthesis software. It's called Vocaloid. And it consists of concatenative synthesis as well. Each vocal persona is based on the studio recording of many vocal sounds by a specific vocalist. And tomorrow afternoon, Arthur Dirksen will talk about concatenative synthesis. Of course, in concatenative synthesis, knowledge from modeling the voice is also used as well. But it is still significant that using recorded voice as a basis leads to much better sounding voice synthesis than purely synthetic voices. This suggests that the models of the voice have serious limitations and that there are many aspects of vocality that cannot be formalized yet and that we don't know yet. The question is this just a matter of acquiring more knowledge, of refining and improving the existing models? Or is there a serious limitation in the current approach, in the current models? Or perhaps is it inherently impossible to catch the human voice completely in its particularity? Is there always a residue that is impossible to formalize, impossible to model, the grain of the voice? And is this related to the body, the unconscious, the mind, human intuition, the soul, the divine, to life, or to indeterminacy? The success of digital voice synthesis that is purely based on synthetic modeling of the voice is limited. It always sounds unnatural, weird. But since we are interested in strange sounds, this is its charm as well. And one of the earliest examples of digital speech synthesis is from Max Matthews at Bell Labs, Bicycle Built for Two.
Irish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two.
The synthesis methods seem to have their own grain, their own particularity, their own weirdness as well. This is why we are so charmed by attempts at voice synthesis, such as the von Kempelen machine and other old and contemporary machines that will be demonstrated today. Moreover, voice synthesis methods have been used in electroacoustic music, not as a more or less perfect imitation of real voices, but as an inspiration to create voice-like sounds or strange voices. Bruno Bossis will provide an overview of the voice as model and models of the voice in electroacoustic music at the end of this morning. So, in this conference, we are on the one hand interested in a broad overview of all things related to voice synthesis. But within this wealth of knowledge and ideas, we want to have a strong focus on these questions. How to model and synthesize voice sounds that conventional speaking, other than conventional speaking or conventional singing, such as extended vocal techniques and the grain of the voice. Another question is, what other models of the voice can be conceived than the conventional models that have been dominant and very productive for the last 2 centuries or so? And what ideas on what voice is are implied by the models of the voice? So, what are the conventional models of the voice? We will hear much about this the following 2 days, so I will only give a very brief overview here. Basically, there are 2 main ways of approaching the modeling of the voice. First, modeling the way the voice is produced by the body. And second, modeling the resulting system of voice sounds. Both can be implemented in mechanical, electric, electronic, or digital synthesis methods, or mixed. The Kempeler machine is an example of a mechanical imitation of voice production. And Fabian Brakhane will demonstrate this in the afternoon at Orgelpark. Julia Kursell will show this morning how Helmholtz was important for a shift from the modeling of voice production to modeling of voice sound. Importantly, both the main model of physical voice production and the main model of voice sounds are very much related. The basic model of physical sound production differentiates between the sound source and filtering or resonance. In normal voiced vowel production, the sound source consists of the vibration of the vocal folds in the larynx. Here, pitch is produced. This sound acquires various timbres or sound colors by the form of the mouth cavity. For example, this makes the difference between A, O, and E. The sonic model of the vowels is related to the model of vowel production. Each vowel has a different sound color that corresponds with different peaks of the overtones acquired through the resonant filter that enhances specific frequency regions and dampens others. And these peaks are called formants. Essential of this conception is the mathematical Fourier analysis of sound. You can make a graph of sound as the changes in air pressure in time, and the Fourier analysis makes, as it were, a picture of what frequencies are in the sound. So, a particular waveform of a particular sound can theoretically be analyzed as consisting of separate simple frequencies or overtones in the form of sinus waves, a spectrum that can be visualized. The mixture of these frequencies characterizes the specific sound. The formants, characteristic of vowels, are peak regions in these mixtures of overtones. These overtones are not heard separately, but contribute to an overall impression of a specific sound color, a specific vowel. And moreover, it is assumed that the ear enacts, as it were, a kind of Fourier analysis. And this is a picture from a more popular magazine on sound. Thus, there is a very strong theoretical cluster consisting of the source filter model, formants, and Fourier analysis. And here you can see it. This left is the source then in the middle the filter function, and that right the sound that comes out, and left and right below are the spectra. The problem with analyzing sound as a spectrum is that it, as it were, freezes the sound in time, making it stationary. A spectrogram takes and glues, as it were, short stationary snapshots of a sound changing in time, and thus gives a rough image of a sound changing in time, but cannot give an accurate account of very fast sound events in the time domain. It is an open question how much we miss by theoretically focusing so strongly on the frequency domain, on the spectrum, instead of on the time domain. Oppenheim and Magnasco showed that temporal acuity is very strong in auditory processing, and that this cannot be explained by assuming that the ear functions solely as a kind of Fourier analysis. In language, there are not only vowels, but unvoiced sounds as well, fricatives such as s, and plosives such as t. And here the sound source is not in the larynx, but somewhere in the mouth. And significantly, conventionally, such fricative and plosive sounds are not considered musical. Singing is mostly on vowels. But instead, fricatives and plosives have been explored in extended vocal techniques of the 20th century. The fricatives and plosives can be combined with sound made by the vocal folds. They can then become voiced, and those two sound sources are combined, z and d. In the phonetic system of linguistic sound production, all language sound categories are systematically analyzed and categorized according to the manner of production. And this has been an important aid in the notation and composition of extended vocal techniques. And this afternoon, Jaap Blonk will tell you more about that. The principle of describing sounds as a combination of components and parameters of voice production is extended by Trevor Wishart and Michael Edgerton into various extended vocal techniques. For example, various parts of the throat and mouth can function as sound sources, setting air in motion in various ways, and various sound sources in the throat and mouth can be combined, and various resonances can be added. And I give you a simple example. One unvoiced sound could be like this. And you can put the voice with it, and then play with the resonance. This analytic approach, conceiving voice sounds as made of various separate components of voice production, can be very helpful and very productive. However, this analytic synthetic approach does not correspond with how voice often feels or sounds. For example, in Trevor Wishart's performance we just saw, we didn't perceive him, I think, as analytically changing parameters, but as playing with the sound of crying and laughing. The impression of voice, both when producing it and when perceiving it, is often more holistic and more subtle. So I see various directions for further exploration. On the level of acoustics and physics, the sound airwaves do not simply go in one direction from source via filter resonance to the world outside. Instead, the movement of air pressure can influence the behavior of the source, and filter and source can influence each other. This can make the outcome of the combination of the various voice components complex and non-linear. On the level of the body, we cannot simply use all body functions independently. Body posture and the way we use some muscles will influence the functioning of other body parts. Breath is not simply a supply of air. Various ways of breathing may influence the behavior of the larynx and the tension of various muscles in the throat, etc. Different body parts often work together. Especially the functioning of the larynx, the vocal folds and the throat are related to breathing, posture, the thorax, the shoulders, well, to the whole body. The mind. It is improbable that the mind controls the voice by controlling all parameters and components independently. Moreover, the production of voice sound is mostly not an end in itself, but embedded in linguistic, musical, theatrical, social, ritual functions, contexts, situations, and systems. It may make even more sense to not assume a division between body and mind. For example, the voice is tied to emotions and feelings. And then there's the environment. If we assume that sound is what an ear hears, then voice sounds are not only formed by the individual's vocal tract, but by the acoustic environment as well. Moreover, someone will consciously or unconsciously adapt his or her voice to the acoustics of the environment, to the sounds in the environment, to the situation, and to other human persons. And it is this inherent relatedness of the voice that will be addressed tomorrow morning by Jannie Pranger and Ute Wasserman. These different approaches and models of the voice imply different ideas about what voice is. Is voice the sound produced by a mechanism of lungs, throat, and mouth? Or does the voice reside in the whole body? Is the voice a product of the mind? Does voice manifest the embodied uniqueness of a human being, as Adriana Cavarero proposes in her book For More Than One Voice? Is voice inherently socially and culturally embedded? Or is voice an open system with many opportunities for change, play, experimentation, virtuosity, and influenced as well by uncontrollable physical, physiological, emotional, and social cultural factors? Theorizing about various ways of conceiving the voice is not the same as actually modeling and synthesizing it in new ways. But perhaps it can inspire new approaches, new extensions, or new additions. And perhaps can experimenting with such new models inspire us to even other ways of conceiving voice. Looking for seeds of possible alternative models is not the same as not valuing the old models. I hope that this symposium will show the richness of various ways of conceiving, modeling, and synthesizing voice, its interdisciplinary development and extensions, and that it will inspire new approaches. Have a good day.